Thank you all for joining today. My name is Melissa Kono. I am the Community Resource Development Educator with the University of Wisconsin Division of Extension here in Trempealeau County. And we are going to interview 4 candidates for the Clerk of Court position here in Trempealeau County that will be appearing on the August 9th primary. The winner of that race goes on to be on the November ballot. Joining me today is Mary Lee. She is a candidate for the Trempealeau County Clerk of Court. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Mary, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, okay. Where do I start? I was born in Arcadia. I am a lifelong resident. I graduated in Oliva Strum. I currently reside in Osseo with my husband. I'm a president of the Osseo Lions Club, past volunteer for the Humane Society, as well as a previous board member. When I'm not working and or volunteering, which seems rare, I like to read, I like to travel, and most importantly, I like fishing. And it's a bonus when I outfish my husband.
So tell us a little bit about your background in this line of work.
Well, I've been in Eau Claire County Clerk of Courts for just over 5 years. I started as a civil docket clerk, quickly promoted to the civil family deputy court clerk.
What do you do in that role?
We assist the public. There are a lot of pro se individuals that come in without attorneys, and they don't know where to go. They don't know how the processes work. While we can't give legal advice, we can kind of direct them to the resources they need to figure out what they're doing. So we do that. We handle all incoming divorces and criminal and name changes, restraining orders. I mean, just anything that occurs in the court. Obviously, we help people by phone, in person. We take minutes in court and handle all documents for all court cases.
Sounds like a lot of interaction with the public.
A lot of interaction, correct.
So tell us how your background and your experiences make you well qualified for this position of Clerk of Court.
Well, we could go back even further. I had to think about it, and I've been in public service for 23 years. And saying that makes me feel a little bit older. But before this, I was with the Trempealeau County Sheriff's Department for 18 years. I was a dispatcher and corrections officer when I first started. When the two separated, I went to be a 911 dispatcher solely. Obviously, there's a lot thrown at you in that position. You never know what you're going to get. So to handle things quickly and efficiently, very important. In addition to that, I was a validation officer for all the information that we entered in the national database. The time agency coordinator, which I had to coordinate trainings and testing for all of the employees in Trempealeau County, or in the Sheriff's Department. And I also volunteered to do that for several police departments as well.
So a lot of experience in criminal justice.
Criminal justice, and then now the civil side. And civil is very expansive. You would think that would be a little bit easier than the criminal side. However, there are volumes and volumes of civil statutes, and it is amazing.
So because of all this experience that you've had, what changes and opportunities exist for this position, and how would you implement those if you were elected Clerk of Court?
Well, opportunities are always there for some type of improvement. I think with the e-filing or the electronic filing system, it evolving. It's helping to become paperless. Saves money there. Some of the challenges I may have, budget, of course, any government position, that is something you have to take a good look at and run things efficiently without the wasteful spending. And I know that's a concern for any government office.
Yeah. Any other changes that you would like to make, or improvements that you think you could make?
Well, I think if COVID taught us anything, it's being prepared for the unexpected. We did a lot. We still do some remote hearings because it's more efficient.
Yeah.
Cross-training, I think, is very important. So everybody in the office can handle someone else's job if there's an emergency. That would be one thing. I'd really have to get in there and see how it's running currently to see what else could maybe be modified or keep as is.
And what interests you about this position?
Everything. I have fallen in love with it. It's the detailed processes that we do, and the helping the public, which, a lot of them they don't know. And just to, again, I can't give legal advice, but you can direct them to the resources they need. Being a good court partner with law enforcement and attorneys and the general public, it is, I like to help people, and it really helps in this position to be out there.
And I'm sure people coming to that office are probably not there because they're going through a great time.
Correct. Correct. The very difficult situations, and we try to be respectful and with treat them with dignity. They're tough situations. The only thing that isn't generally is surrogacy cases, which are fabulous because those are heartwarming cases.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, people are getting the baby they wanted, so that's exciting. That really makes me happy. But yes.
So this is a partisan position. How important is it to you, to run with a party on this or choose a party designation? And what values of that party do you think you'll bring to the position?
Well, I think it's very important. I would like people to understand what I stand for. I would say make sure there isn't any government overreach. That's something that is very important. This position really, there's no discretion in it. As far as the political party goes, there are no politics in this office at all. So I would just bring my values as being a hard worker, doing the right thing all the time.
And why should the voters of Trempealeau County choose you as the next clerk of court?
Well, I think I am a hard worker. Well, I know I'm a hard worker. In fact, I am very proud of the work I've done for the last 5 years. I've put my employee evaluations on my website, on Facebook, for everyone to read, so you can see what I would be bringing to Trempealeau County.
Do you have education or training that is in line with this?
Well, I've got some supervisory and managerial course credits that I've done through UW-Platteville. I was actually trained by a 41-year employee in Eau Claire, so that wealth of information through all the years was invaluable. She was fantastic, and everybody from our clerk of court down, I've learned something from each and every one of them about our position, and proudly endorsed by the clerk of court in Eau Claire County as well.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to give us the name of your website too, so people can go there for more information?
Absolutely. It's on Facebook. They could just search Mary Lee for Trempealeau County Circuit Court. I believe it's at Mary for COC is what it is.
Okay. All right. Anything else you want to tell us?
I'm sure there's many things I've forgotten, just that I'm very passionate about this position, excited about the possibilities, and look forward to August 9th.
Oh, all right, well, good luck.
Thank you.
All right, next up, I'm joined by Derek Winkler. He is a candidate for the Clerk of Court position here in Trempealeau County. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Derek Winkler. I'm actually from Wisconsin Rapids originally. Grew up in the state, actually have the state on my body. Love Wisconsin. Been here my whole life, don't plan on leaving. Grew up Wisconsin Rapids, went to Lincoln High School. Didn't go to college right out of high school. Didn't know what I wanted to go to school for. So kind of was just like, oh, I'm gonna work, get some experience, and kind of figure out what I want to do in life. So I started working for Walmart at the time. They needed somebody young, somebody to help just put things in the back of people's vehicles. My grandma worked out there at the time, so she kind of helped me get the job while I was still in high school. It was something for the summer, keep me busy, make some money, and kind of decide what I wanted to do. I loved it, loved working in business, loved working with people. So I actually started going to school for my associate's degree online for business management. So I was working full-time, doing school full-time, got my associate's degree, wanted to do something a little different, so I went to the distribution center in Menominee for Walmart. And so kind of worked there for about a year or so and started getting my bachelor's. I started getting people I'd worked with previously, former managers, assistants, store managers. They knew I wanted to move up. They knew my desire to manage and lead, and knew that I did a good job. And so they reached out to me asking if I wanted to essentially work for them because they were looking for assistants. So I told them I wasn't sure at the time. I didn't know if I wanted to go back into retail. I'd like the distribution side of it. Logistics, that was kind of more my forte, what I like to do. And so I continued getting my degree, but to move up in the distribution center, you had to have your bachelor's degree, and I still had another year or so to go. And they're very competitive jobs to get into, especially Walmart and their distribution center. I decided to go back to the store and be an assistant. And so I did that for a few years. First year I started, went into consumables, which is a good portion of the store, grocery, pets, paper goods, chemicals, pharmacy, pretty much anything consumable in the store, and did that for the first 8 months, and then was transferred to overnights. So essentially was the highest ranking manager on the overnight side of the store. The stores I was in didn't have a shift manager, so from pretty much the time I got to the store till the time I went home, I was the highest ranking manager. And that was back before the pandemic, before things were shut down, when Walmart was open 24/7. So definitely made it a lot more interesting for sure. So that definitely gave me that experience and that desire that I wanted to keep moving forward, keep moving up. After that, I transferred to a co-op. So I was working for a co-op out of Beaver Dam. And I was running a couple of convenience stores for them, and then was promoted to running the western half of their district. And so I was running stores from Portage to almost over to Toma for all the little towns and things like that had convenience stores of Cenex. And that was definitely an eye-opening experience to go from just one location to having 10 that you had to manage, and all of the people and managers in between. And so it gives me kind of a little bit of a broader perspective and seeing the bigger picture of things for sure. More recently though, we moved back to Trempealeau County area. I'm not from here, my wife is. So we wanted to move closer to family. So I took a job with Menards and was working as a manager for them up at their distribution center for the last few years. The last full year I was in their sign shop. So any signs, any rebates that you had gotten and sent to the stores, we had printed them for you, or we had printed the signs that you'd seen in the stores. So that was definitely a new experience. Not something I'd ever done before, didn't know anything about signs or the materials needed or processes that go into it. Like, hey, this is what you'll be doing now for your day-to-day. And it's a great experience. It's definitely something I never anticipated doing, much like working in the clerk of court's office. But it definitely gave me much more knowledge and skills I never would have had otherwise. And recently then I moved to the Clerk of Court's office, actually. I'm working in the Clerk of Court's office here in Trempealeau County.
And what do you do there?
I am the small claims and civil deputy clerk.
Okay.
So I take care of any small claims matters that are under $10,000. If people have either evictions, just money judgments, replevin, which is if you're trying to get like a vehicle or a trailer or something like that back, I take care of all those kind of situations. Or civil with small claim, or civil with, restraining orders, adverse possession, real estate, those kind of things that we take care of with civil docket as well. I moved this way just because 2 young boys at home, I have a 3 and a 1-year-old. The commute and the hours, working in Eau Claire for 12 plus hours a day, definitely was getting to me and the family. So made a change, doing something entirely different, working in the Clerk of Court's office, and definitely learning quite a bit more as well. So civil small claims are the majority. Learned some financials as well so far. And then actually learning criminal right now as well. So I did criminal intake the last 2 weeks. So definitely have my hands full trying to kind of learn all of it, regardless of the campaign and things like that. Just trying to increase my knowledge and be as well-rounded as I can. It's just something I like to do. I like to keep busy and learning and improving. So just working on trying to learn as much as I possibly can.
So how are your past experiences and your background make you well-suited for the position of Clerk of Court?
Sure. My past experience, I have quite a bit of different experience where working in positions I wasn't as familiar with, like I am with the Clerk of Courts. It's not something I'm as well versed in, maybe, but it's something I'm willing to learn, something I'm proving I can learn, and something I'm working on daily, being in that office right now, that I've proven I can go into something I don't know and improve upon it. As in the sign shop, the manager before me had been there for multiple years. And in that first year during a pandemic and global crises of shortages and supply chain issues, we still ended up posting better numbers, using less money, and having more sales. Just the way that you manage your payroll, your employees, and everything else, and in between. Just trying to be as efficient as possible and trying to improve on the processes you have.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about that. What challenges and opportunities do you see for this position, and how do you intend to improve it?
Sure. For the position, especially for myself, just being newer to the Clerk of Court position or to the courts in general, my plan is to put in the work, put in the effort, learn, ask questions, go to the people who know what they're doing. They've been there, done that. That's your best resource, especially, is to learn from the people who know what they're doing. You can't ever disregard that by any means. In the office itself, same thing. We're a little bit newer of a team for the most part. And cross-training is definitely always a great thing, is to make sure everybody, especially being in a smaller county like we are, we're not Dane County or Milwaukee or something like that, where they have a lot of other deputy clerks that are in the office. We all have to wear a bunch of different hats and kind of know a little bit of everything, so we can make sure to take care of everybody. So otherwise, we don't want it to be someone's, oh, well, we can't help you today, or we'll have to get back to you. We want to try to be able to help everybody as they come in.
Yeah, it does seem like you have a lot of interaction with the public in that role, and a lot of customer service.
Very much so.
Yeah. So as you know, this is a partisan position. The voters in August will choose a candidate based on a party. How important is it to you that it is a partisan position, and what values from your party would you bring into the position?
I think it's somewhat important that it's a partisan position, just so that people's ideals and beliefs align with what you do as well. In that position itself, there's not as much influence over that kind of thing, so it doesn't affect the day-to-day, at least in my opinion. We're record keepers. We take care of what happens in the courts. We record it just as it happened. There's transcripts that are taken as well, so it's not like we can change that, or we shouldn't change that, or how we put things in. So I see it, it should be pretty cut and dry, black and white, for how we record it and what we do. So there's not a lot of influence that we can have in that. But obviously people agree or disagree with the things you like or don't like, and they try to vote for you based on that as well.
So why should the voters of Trempealeau County choose you as their next clerk of court?
I think the voters should choose me because I'm going to work as hard as I can. I'll learn everything I can for the position, try to improve the position as much as possible. It's not something I take lightly by any means. It's something I would like to improve and just make better for our county. It's something that impacts quite a few people's lives on a daily basis with all the different things that we take care of, whether it's criminal, small claims, family, or just the financials if they do owe money. It does impact many people's livelihoods even at some points. So just to be compassionate and understanding and to help them through that process. We can't give legal advice, obviously, but we can still assist and make sure that we get them what they need.
Yeah, because they're probably not going through the greatest time in their life if they're at your office, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, anything else you want to share?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I think we're good.
All right, well, thanks so much for being here, Derek.
Thank
It's been
you
nice
for having
talking
me.
with you. Yeah.
You too.
All right, next I have Carrie Tidquist. She is also a candidate running for the clerk of court position here in Trempealeau County. Welcome, Carrie.
Thanks.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am from Arcadia. I graduated in 2011. I have 3 children. I live between Blair and Arcadia with my husband. We've been married for about 4 years. We've been together for about 8, but we have a little hobby farm. I went to school for business management through Western Tech, and I managed to do that while being pregnant, planning a wedding, and I was in school full-time and working, so juggling is great.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about your background in this office.
Well, I'm currently the criminal clerk. I've been there for about 3 years. My job is important because if I don't pay attention to details or pay attention in court, then I may get those details wrong and someone may be released from jail or not sit too long or sit longer than was ordered. So it's really important for me to pay attention, and speed is very, very important because they don't stop on intakes, and we go through 150 cases a day very easily.
Wow.
So I handle the criminal, and that's basically my main role. And with that, I mean, that consumes majority of my time, but I do know bits and pieces of other positions because it's important to be cross-trained. So in case someone's gone, then we have that. But so I am actually the senior deputy, so I've been there the longest. Everybody else that's been there has been there under a year. So some of the roles when Michelle is gone, I take over.
And
I'm
Michelle's
left in
the
charge.
current clerk of court.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So tell us how your background and experiences make you well qualified for this position.
Well, being in the clerk's office already, I feel like I know the processes and what's expected. I feel like me being able to use my degree appropriately would benefit, and just being in that role already, I think it speaks volumes because it would be a smoother transition. As for someone who doesn't know the position or is from another county or has never even worked in a clerk's office before, it would be I don't want to say rocky, but it would be a less smooth transition.
And because you are in that office, you know, what challenges and opportunities do you see for improving this position, and how do you intend to do that?
Well, communication is a huge thing between departments. I'd like to improve on some of that because there is lack of communication, and that would just make the whole system run smoother. I did mention earlier about cross-training. With everybody else being under a year in our office, it's very important to cross-train. So that was my biggest thing that I really wanted to work on if I get in this position, is to make sure everybody's cross-trained. Because, for example, when I'm gone, there's not someone that is able to do my job obviously to the extent that I could, but there's nobody that really knows how to do it. So I find it very important to create we call them Bibles. So mine's a criminal Bible, and I have it so many details in there that someone can walk in and just do my job, which is helpful for when I'm gone or if I'm sick unexpectedly. So I think that is going to be the biggest project for me, is to make sure everybody's cross-trained. And then figuring out the transition to the new building. How are we going to do that without shutting down the court system? Because our office has to be open to the public. We can't just shut down our office. There has to be somebody in there and available during work hours. So figuring out how we're going to transition everything over there and move everything, computers and older files. I know we're in the process of back scanning, so going back and taking chunks of years and just getting them into CCAP. I don't have a lot of time to do that, but the other clerks do, and so they've been working hard on that.
Okay. And because you are in that office, do you want to talk a little bit about the functions of the Clerk of Court's office and people maybe who don't have experience interacting with that department? What kinds of things do you do there?
So I know for me, I go into court, I take the notes that I'm not the stenographer or the court reporter, so I don't take word for word, but I take little snapshots of things. And I make sure that those are in what we call the minutes. Those get scanned into the system. Anything that if you go out to CCAP and you see notes out there, that's what we do. We put those notes in there. We make sure that appearances are tracked, warrants are canceled, they're issued, judgment of convictions, that they're correct. In family cases, they do a lot of starting the cases, making sure all the proper paperwork is in file, making sure that they follow up with those families in that 120-day period. Small claims and civil, it's a little different. I'm not super familiar with them because they are such a small caseload. There's not much. There's not a lot of it, and there's not a lot, I mean, there's detail in them, but not to the extent of the other cases. Family and criminal are the two largest caseloads. But so we do all the paperwork for that. We make sure everything's in on time. We follow up with deadlines, follow up with attorneys. We kind of just keep the process going and keep the court going. I know I manage my calendar, or I should say the judge's calendar. So it's important for me to pay attention to how many people we are scheduling on a day, because I don't want to overbook or underbook, and it's important for me to schedule the interpreters as well if one's needed. The family clerk does that as well, and she works closely with child support, so they work kind of as a team. So yeah, and our financial clerk, she kind of works behind the scenes. She'll step in when needed, but she does things where she sends overdue balances or past due balances to state debt collection and sends out those final notices. She suspends driver's license for that. Like, it's just a process, and I think that our office sometimes is overlooked. We don't necessarily get the acknowledgement, which I think is, it kind of sucks in a bad way to say it, but we do a lot more than what the community gets to see, and I think it's very important that people do know what we do.
Yeah.
So.
And then talk to about working with other departments. You said you'd like to maybe work on some better coordination. What other departments do you work with here?
We work with the district attorney's office. That is our biggest, the office that we work with the most. Obviously with criminal being the highest caseload, but then we also work with the judge's office, which they're pretty amazing over there. Our JA, so our judicial assistant, she helps with scheduling things that are what we call off calendar, so not in the time blocks that I schedule things. So she helps me track that. If I have questions, she's more than willing to answer those. So the communication lies within like our processes, because our process may be different than the DA's, but it also may be different than child supports or the judge's office. So it's really important for everybody to know how each other's jobs work, so then you can work together more easily and smoothly.
So it sounds like a lot of departmental cooperation that you have to do. So, as you know, this is a partisan position. How important is it to you that it's a partisan position, and what values of your party would you instill in this position if you were to become the next clerk of court?
In all honesty, I don't believe it should be a partisan position. I believe it should be nonpartisan, because our party that we run with does not affect how we do our job. We have to stand neutral. It doesn't matter what letter you have behind your name. You are a person and we are to serve you. You are part of the community. And so we have to put all of that aside. I mean, as far as values, I would say being respectful, and everybody is entitled to their own opinion. And you just have to respect that. And if they have another opinion that's different than yours, that's fine. And you just have to find a way to work with that opinion, and maybe you can combine both of them and it would be an even better solution. So that would be something, you know, just making sure that everybody is open for the suggestions and open for other people's opinions, and making sure that, you know, you're not just shut off and have like tunnel vision. It's very important to stay open and non-objective.
And it does sound like you interact with the public a lot in that position, and do a lot of customer service too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So why should the voters of Trempealeau County choose you as their next clerk of court?
Well, that one has always been kind of a hard one for me, because there is no perfect answer for it. With me already being in there, I had mentioned it would be a smooth transition. I'm the senior deputy clerk. I have the most experience in that department. When my boss, Michelle, is gone, she relies on me to take those reins, and things are being passed to me to manage and to take care of. So I think that since those roles are already being instilled, and you know, I'm having to step up and take care of that, I think it would be a really smooth transition. And I know where there's kinks in the system, and I think that I would have the best view of being able to fix those kinks and to continue to carry over the hard work that Michelle has already put in, and that she's improved. That I feel like I would be one of the best ones that would know how to carry that forward.
Thank you so much for being here, Carrie.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Rob Grover, who is a candidate for the Trempealeau County Clerk of Court. Thank you for being here, Rob.
Well, Melissa, thank you so much. This is such a pleasure. You know, I love WTCO.
I know. Welcome back.
Yes, I've been involved with the studio here for a long time, so it's a pleasure to be on this end, getting chatted to rather than doing the questions.
Get prepared to be grilled, Rob.
Here we go. Bring it on. No.
Tell us about yourself.
Well, yeah, well, as Melissa said, name's Rob Grover, born and raised right here in Trempealeau County. Grew up on my family's farm in rural Galesville, a place where my family's lived since the 1850s, so have a real deep history here in Trempealeau County. Went to GET High School, graduated from there in 2004, went to UW Milwaukee for a bit, ended up graduating from UW La Crosse with a degree in history. I've had a lot of interesting jobs kind of throughout those years. So, you know, I worked at Golden Plump as a security guard. I've worked for the Trempealeau County Sheriff's Department as a corrections officer, did that job for about 5 years and really loved it, learned a lot. And that job particularly is one of the things that I think has inspired me to want to run for the Clerk of Courts position, because I've seen the power of a well-run, professional criminal justice and judicial system, and what good it can do for the community, and how it can really help people on their worst days. So that job was incredible, and I loved it. Left that position in 2016 to open up a business called Wing Haven Pizza Farm, again on my family's farm. So we do pizza, beer and wine, live music, all on the family farm, which is a lot of fun. So, you know, which again, a lot of fun and incredible experience, but also a ton of work. And that's, you know, another job that I think has prepared me in many ways to be good for this position, which we can talk more about. And then in 2019, there was an opening with Trempealeau County as the Economic Development and Tourism Coordinator. They were kind of having trouble finding one to fill the position, so John Schultz, who was on the PTED, Parks, Tourism, Economic Development Committee at the time, approached me to see if I might have some interest, again with my background, and I took on that position. Did that for about 2.5 years, and actually just left that position back in December of last year, and now I work full-time for Catholic Charities for the Diocese of La Crosse, and I'm the volunteer coordinator for them. So I've had a real diversity of job experiences, and I think which is probably different than a lot of the other candidates that are running in this race. But I think the balance of both professional and real life experience will make me a really effective clerk of court, because you know it. Though the job is very much secretarial, very much in terms of keeping track of documents, keeping track of the court proceedings, that sort of thing. You also need someone who is personable, someone who's empathetic, someone who, you know, again, knows that when someone's dealing with the court system, it's usually not on their best day, right? Very rarely are we dealing with the court system on happy occasions, unless the judge is marrying you maybe, or you know, maybe a happy adoption situation, something like that. So yeah, I just think my diversity of experiences, my background, and I guess my personality really sets me up well to be an effective clerk of court.
Yeah. Well, do you want to talk a little bit more about your background and experience and how that makes you well suited for this position?
Yeah, you bet. So just touching on the different professional experiences I had, you know, first I'll talk a little bit about when I was working for the Sheriff's Department as a corrections officer. You know, that job includes a lot of keeping track of paperwork. You know, a big piece of the job was when someone would be brought in, you know, maybe for a warrant or maybe for fines they didn't pay, or getting arrested off the street. You know, we would sit with them. There was layers and layers of information we had to gather from them, layers and layers of documentation we had to do to keep it organized. You know, whether it be their health history, of course, their criminal history, also looking at things like, you know, getting fingerprints and doing all that documentation. So there was so much documentation and paperwork that went into it that was so essential. Because if you didn't do that right on the front end, it would screw things up later on for them, you know, in the court system. So, you know, that job in particular, I think, has given me just a great experience to be effective. And as I alluded to earlier, that job as well also just helps build my empathy for folks. You know, we have, when I was working there, I'm sure we still do, we have incredible corrections officers, but you know, that's a job that can get you a little jaded, and you can, I can say sometimes you can maybe lose your humanity a little bit, but I always prided myself on the fact that I tried to put my people a little bit, or put myself a little bit in people's shoes that were coming in. And again, just remembering that, you know, these folks are going through something tough, and, you know, the reasoning is not for me to judge, and certainly isn't in the court system, right? Like in the clerk of court's position, but to treat everyone with respect and dignity, and, you know, to make their experience with the court system a little bit better. Yeah, and again, you know, we presume everyone's guilty or innocent until proven guilty, right? So there's that as well. So I think the corrections officer position really has made me ready to take on this position in a really effective way. You know, also as a small business owner in Trempealeau County, well, I guess, you know, we've grown quite a bit now, so maybe you'd call us a mid-level size business. I don't know what you'd call us, but we have a lot of employees, and I think a very important part about being clerk of court is recruiting and making sure we've got good, competent, hardworking, but also really well-treated staff. You know, and I think that's the element that we sometimes forget. We want people that are going to be really great employees, but we also have to treat them really well, right? And I've seen that firsthand as an employer, as someone that's created jobs and someone that has had to keep on staff in a market, which, you know, with the you know, the economist work that you do, how tough it is for places to keep and retain good employees. And I'd like to make that, you know, central to what we're doing at the clerk of court's office. We've lost some good people over the years for a number of reasons, and again, my experience owning and operating a small business, I think, will make me really effective at recruitment and bringing in folks to work for the clerk of court's office. So, and also with the business experience, you know, there is a lot, just like there was being a corrections officer, there is a lot of complicated paperwork that goes into running a small business, right? And you really have to be on your game. You really have to keep things organized. You really have to keep your eye on the budget. I think, you know, that's something that's sometimes different in the private sector than it is in the public sometimes, is that in the private sector, if you're not watching your dollars and cents, if you're not being efficient with every dollar you have, especially in the climate we're dealing with now, you know, your business might fail, right? And that's the kind of perspective that I'd like to take to the clerk of court's office. I mean, we can't be a penny wise, pound foolish, right? But we've got to be efficient with every dollar we have a well-run, efficient clerk of court's office, and justify every dollar that we're spending. Because it's at the end of the day, it's your money, it's my money, it's everyone watching this, it's their money. And I think my experience as a small business owner too really helps with that.
Yeah, along that line, what challenges and opportunities exist for this position, and how do you intend to improve it?
You bet. Well, one huge challenge, I think. So when I've been out knocking doors, and I've knocked, gosh, thousands, literally, since we started this campaign, there's still a lot of folks out there that are really skeptical, and I think rightfully so, about the amount of money that we're spending on the Justice Center. Now, I'm not saying I'm for or against it or anything like that, but there's people looking at the bill and saying, whoa, 50-some million, yikes. You know, when a lot of them are really struggling, right, with inflation, with the filling up your tank, getting groceries, all that stuff you're all experiencing out there, as I am. So I think a big challenge is going to be showing the public, you know, why it was necessary, and showing people that now that we've got this new building, we've got folks in there like the clerk of court who's running a staff, we have to show them that we're going to be efficient, we're going to use that space wisely, and that the money that they're putting in is going to be well spent. And, you know, going forward, there will be other building projects probably in the future, or other capital projects. And I think the clerk of court has an obligation to be out front, especially in a project like that, which was, you know, a judicial center, and really lay out, you know, why it is or isn't, why the spending is or isn't justified. So that, to me, that's going to be a big challenge. A lot of people, again, are just skeptical of what we're spending over there. So now we've got to have a court system that really, you know, everyone's getting the bang for their buck. And that's what I'd like to do. I'd really like to, you know, show the public that we're being efficient with their money. I'd like to bring the public in to not only see the facilities, but maybe do more than we're doing too. You know, whether it be legal clinics and things like that, to add value to what we're doing, right? To be a even better resource for people in Trempealeau County, so that, you know, again, we're showing that that money spent is going to be well spent, because there it is now. They're building it. So now we've got to make sure we're efficient with it. And that's a huge challenge, but I'm up to the challenge.
Okay. Speaking of campaigning, as you know, this is a partisan position. How important is that to you, that it is a partisan position, and how would you bring the values of your party into that position?
Well, the reality is, I've talked about this in every door that I've knocked on, and I shouldn't say every door, but so many people that I've chatted with. The reality is, there's so many of us that don't believe these positions should be partisan. Now, there is the reality of our political system, and we decide to run with parties, and you know, issues that I don't think are pertinent to the clerk of court's position per se might lead one into that. But the reality is, the idea that, you know, the clerk of court or the sheriff or the register of deeds or the coroner, the person telling, you know, confirming a death should be a Democrat or Republican is pretty silly. So I guess I don't want to ignore the question, but for me, actually, it's bringing in my own values, the ones I've talked about earlier, you know, about fiscal sense and being thrifty, about good customer service, about empathy. I mean, those are values that I have, and I think most folks in Trempealeau County have, and I want to bring that into the position. I mean, again, I think there's partisan toxicity that has dripped into our political system, which, you know, 20 years ago, you didn't see it on the local level, and now it's here as well. So, you know, I want to bring my values to this position.
Okay, and then finally, why should the voters of Trempealeau County choose you as their next clerk of court?
Yeah, well, as I've talked about, Melissa, while we've chatted here today, I am kind of a touch of the outsider candidate, though I am incredibly qualified. My background is probably not, I know, is not the same as the other people running, but I think that can be really effective. You know, if you look at our current clerk of court, Michelle Weisenberger, you know, she came from kind of a different background. She was in a banking, private sector background and came in, and I think people, regardless of your political stripe, would say she's done an incredible job for Trempealeau County. So, you know, I think, again, my background being a bit of an outsider, my former work as a corrections officer, a small business owner, the county's former economic development coordinator, which gives me deep insight to the issues facing people in Trempealeau County. I think it overall makes me a great, well-rounded candidate to serve the people of Trempealeau County. And I just, I want to thank you for doing this, and I just really want to ask you to get out and vote, and hopefully vote Rob Grover for Trempealeau County Clerk of Court on August 9th.
Okay. Well, thank you, Rob, for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Melissa.
Thank you all for joining today for the Trempealeau County Clerk of Courts Candidates Forum. We were joined today by 4 candidates for the position, and the winner of the primary in August will go on to be on the November ballot. I'm Melissa Kono. I am the Community Resource Development Educator with the University of Wisconsin Division of Extension here in Trempealeau County, and I want to talk to you today about the ballot that's being used for the August 9th primary. The primary in August is a partisan primary, which means voters can only vote in one party, and they choose their designation at the top of the ballot, and they can choose which party they vote for, and they can only vote within that party. This is a sample of our ballot that we'll be using here in Trempealeau County. It is front and back. There is lots of information on this ballot, and I just want you to make sure that you know how to properly fill out a ballot. So voters will have to choose their party designation. You don't have to register with a party. You can vote in another party for the primary purposes, but you can only vote in one party. So we have the selection of Democratic, Republican, Libertarian, and Constitution parties. The first of the parties appears on the ballot as the Democratic Party, followed by the Republican Party. And the offices, there's some statewide offices of governor, lieutenant governor, Attorney General, and Secretary of State, and State Treasurer. There's also one of the U.S. senators that's up for re-election this year, and then also our representative in Congress, and then our state Senate, our state assembly representative, and then on the local level, we have the sheriff's race, the coroner, and the clerk of courts. Now, not all of these have ballot candidates here in the primary, people can elect to write in, but just note that only registered write-ins are counted. And then be sure to look at the ballot both front and back to make sure you're filling out all the information. The Republican Party candidates continue on the back here, and then the congressional and libertarian parties also have their candidates here when they have candidates running. Some places in Trempealeau County also have a school referendum, and that's located here at the bottom. So don't forget to fill that out. And if you don't know someone, you don't have to vote for each office.
I want to share some of the functions that are available on the myvote.wi.gov site for Wisconsin. This is the official voter registration and voter management site for the state of Wisconsin. This is the site that you'll want to use. Please be aware that there are third parties that have voter registration sites that may pop up in a Google search, but I would stay away from those and just use the official site. What's great about this site is you can check your voter information, find your polling place, see what's on your ballot, update any name or address changes you might have. You can register to vote, and even request and track an absentee ballot. So I'm going to show you the ballot information. Coming up in August, we have the partisan primary. This is a little different than other types of elections in that in Wisconsin, people can only vote within one political party. You don't need to register with that party or anything like that. You just choose privately on your ballot which party you want to vote. So if you select this first one here in Democratic, you'll see the sample ballot for the next election and the Democratic candidates that are available on that ballot. This gives you a chance to look at who's on the ballot ahead of time, maybe research the candidates if you don't know anything about them. I'll show you the Republican ballot for the next election. Lists all the Republican candidates for governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary of state, state treasurer, U.S. senator, representative in Congress, our state senator. And just note that this may vary based on where you live. I'm just looking at one district right now. And then Trempealeau County Clerk of Court, we interviewed those candidates for a form. They're listed here. And then depending on where you live, there may be a referendum as well. So this My Vote site gives you an opportunity to look at what's on the ballot. And the Libertarian and Constitution parties also have some candidates listed as well, following here on this page. So I hope this gives you a little more information about what to look for coming up on August 9th in the partisan primary. The polls open at 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. You can request an absentee ballot ahead of time if you think that you can't make it. Registered voters are able to request an absentee ballot be mailed to them, or your clerk may offer in-person voting at the polling place up to the election. There's just no absentee voting the day before the election. I hope this helps.